Dietrich McGowan had an initial appearance in federal court today. He is charged with conspiracy to distribute narcotics and distribution of drugs. According to the U.S. Attorney's Office, a grand jury's indictment accuses McGowan and 10 others in conspiring to import heroin, cocaine, and fentanyl from Mexico.
Dietrich Lee McGowan, a.k.a. Fat, was born on December 5, 1972 in Greenwood, South Carolina, to a loving and caring mother. She was a strong, hard-working woman who raised her children to have grit and determination. Little did she know, the same characteristics she instilled into her family would take a life of his own, no longer struggling while making an honest living. Fat was raised in an area that struggled below the poverty line. The neighborhood was marked by harsh realities. Drugs and violence were all too common. The oldest of his siblings, Dietrich, nicknamed Fat, was known early for his charismatic presence and his outspoken nature. As a teen, he stood about 6'3" and excelled in sports. Coaches and classmates alike say he had the talent to go pro, only if he would have stuck with it. But Fat wasn't just athletic, he was sharp in the classroom too. His favorite subject was math, and he picked it up with ease. Still, he didn't always apply himself fully. His focus often drifted elsewhere to do things far beyond the school halls. In the early 90s, the crack epidemic had found its way into neighborhoods of Greenwood. For many young men like Fat, the lure of fast money was impossible to ignore, and the street offered opportunities, dangerous but immediate. With the streets calling and the money flowing, Fat assembled a small crew of people he trusted, loyal to the grind. Together they began hustling crack around the neighborhoods. It didn't take long for business to boom. Cash came fast, and with that, the perks, nice cars, women, and a level of popularity that made Fat a known figure in Greenwood. But with visibility came problems. As word spread about his success, so did the envy. Other crews began to take notice. Jealousy turned into tension, tension turned into threats. Fat, who wasn't known for being violent, found himself in a position where he had to defend what he built. When someone came from his crew, he responded with force. After a few fights and a couple of shootings, the message was clear. Crossing Fat or his people came with consequences. The street started talking. Their talk was loud. The East Side crew was running the city. With his name ringing across Greenwood and his product gripping the community, Fat's presence on the streets was impossible to ignore. But the same notoriety that brought him power also brought him attention from law enforcement. By September 1996, Fat movements had caught the eye of local police. He was arrested with an undisclosed amount of drugs, making his first official drug charge. But for Fat, it was just a bump in the road. Young, determined, and convinced he was untouchable, he went right back to hustling, right back to the block. But his momentum wouldn't last. Just a year later, October 1997, the feds came. Fat was arrested again for a second drug charge in less than 12 months. This time, the stakes felt different. The weight of back-to-back arrests made one thing clear. His luck was running out, and prison was no longer just a possibility, it was becoming a reality. After nearly 10 years in prison, a period during which Fat had plenty of time to reflect on his past, he spent his days reading books, working out, and determined to find a better path during his first attempt at the regime. Yet upon his early release in the late 2000s, Fat was drawn back to the streets of Greenwood. Much had changed on the surface, but the familiar rhythms of the neighborhood remained. Determined to stay free, Fat initially attempted a conventional 9-to-5 job. However, accustomed to being in control, he quickly realized that a job wasn't for him. Instead, he had side hustles. He even became intrigued by the local nightlife and considered one day to possibly own or manage a business. After several years of staying out of the direct hustle of the streets, Fat started to re-engage with his old life. By this time, The drug trade had evolved, and a more mature Fat realized the mistakes of his past and sought a smarter approach. With the crack business no longer yielding the same profits, he turned his attention to a new opportunity. The booming opioid epidemic arrived in Greenwood. Fat soon mastered the process of pressing pills laced with fentanyl, a delicate balance as he knew exactly how much to use to avoid his customers from overdosing, but still cut enough to make a profit. Recognizing the new market and the opportunity, he put together a trusted crew to run the operation. They later expanded the operation from county to county, different states, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida. Also was operating out of 2 or 3 different trap houses locally. During this time, Fat and his crew began to receive kilos of cocaine and fentanyl from Mexico, with the shipments valued at over $2 million. Yet aware, Fat still needed to camouflage himself, so he seeked legitimate money. He was soon hired as the general manager of Elite Lounge in Greenwood, South Carolina. He turned it into one of the most popular spots in Greenwood from food, entertainment, and safety. He had local talent sometimes perform on stage, even belonging in Mode 3. He was then hired as the general manager of Legends in Greenville, a local bar after-hours spot. Over time, Fat began to see the benefits of legal income, realizing he could make a living without drugs. He slowly started distancing himself from the criminal enterprise. As he transitioned, Fat used his earnings to support the community, help his friends and family, paying for his kids' education, and even organizing local fundraisers to support the youth. On February 26, during one particularly cold day, Fat noticed some young Girl Scouts shivering outside. In a spontaneous act of generosity, he bought all the cookies for $540. The troop was deeply grateful. They captured a moment in a photo. Unbeknown to Fat, who wasn't active on social media, the image would soon be posted online and go viral. The next day, the photo splashed across every local news channel, drawing far more attention than Fat had ever anticipated. Just 2 days later, the feds acted and busted Fat and his crew. What Fat didn't know, he was being surveillanced for over a year. According to court documents, it was tapping phones and placing cameras all over Greenwood to follow him and his crew. The feds even posed as the cartel members in Mexico when Fat and his team was looking for a new plug to get more kilos. Overall, the feds seized more than 20 kilos of heroin during the investigation and over $5 million. In August 2018, Fat pled guilty to conspiracy to distribute a controlled substance, possession with intent to distribute a controlled substance, and conspiracy to commit money laundering. Under the plea agreement, more than 30 charges was dismissed. The 47-year-old also pled guilty to attempting to knock off a witness and the assistant U.S. attorney after authorities learned he had placed a $10,000 hit on both. All the cash proceeds seized, forfeiting his home, cars, and jewelry. It was the end for Fat. He was sentenced to over 30 years in the federal corrections facilities. Still to this day, Fat name rings to Greenwood. This is the untold story of Dietrich Fat McGowan. Thank you for watching this episode of the Kingpin Files. Please like, share, and subscribe